All right, dear friends, good evening. And we are right now going to be doing the 15th day of the Daily Mitzvah, continuing the theme of Mitzvos, all about idolatry and foreign practices, foreign worships. And here we go. Lots of mitzvahs. I think there's 14 mitzvahs today. So let us get going. Mitzvah number 1. It is forbidden to erect a monument or a statue intended for the purpose of people gathering there to honor it and to worship there, even if you made this monument for the purpose of serving Hashem. Why? Because this is what the idolaters do. They create these monuments for people, for all the worshipers to come around and gather around and worship from there. And we don't want to do anything that is similar to the way the idolaters and the pagans do their forms of worship. Second mitzvah for today, that we are not allowed to create stones, special stones, designated stones, which are well designed, for the purpose of kneeling and bowing down to a god, even if you make the stone to bow down to the one Hashem. Why? Because this is what the idolaters do. They create these beautiful stones. And the idea is that these stones are set before the idols, and people go on these stones and they kneel and they bow to the idols from these stones, and therefore we don't do it. The only place you're allowed to do it is in the Holy Temple. But otherwise, it's forbidden for a Jew to kneel down on stone, even if he's bowing to Hashem. Third mitzvah for today, it is forbidden to plant trees in the Holy Temple or near the altar in the temple for the purpose of beautifying the area, even if you intended to beautify the place for Hashem. Why? Because this was the way of the idolaters, that they were well known that they would plant beautiful trees, which were very pleasant to look at, in their houses of worship. And because this was part of their rituals, part of how they created their centers, their temples, that they would have these beautiful trees, we don't do that. And indeed, it is a mitzvah that throughout the entire Holy Temple complex, you cannot have any trees there. Fourth mitzvah for today. The mitzvah is that it's a mitzvah for a Jew to destroy all idols and the house of worship of the idols. And the Rambam says you got to use any tool of destruction at your disposal. Break it, burn it, tear it down, cut it down. Use whatever form of destruction is most efficient to get the job done quickly and totally. We want total destruction. We don't want there should be anything left, no remnant of anything that has to do with idolatry. And there's a mitzvah in the Torah, Abe ta'abdun es kol mekayim, that you should destroy all these places of idol worship. And the Rambam says this mitzvah that we should proactively seek to destroy anything that has to do with idol worship really only applies in the land of Israel. Outside of Israel, there's no mitzvah to be proactive about it. Next mitzvah, that's fifth mitzvah for today. Next mitzvah is that we should not take anything that had to do with idol worship into our possession, and we should not derive any benefit from it. Rather, anything that has to do with idol worship should have nothing to do with us, and we should not use it in any what way. For example, imagine there's a tree that was used for idol worship, and you say, it's a good tree, let me use this tree for wood to burn in my home in the winter. So I'm not using the wood for any idolatrous purposes. The opposite. I'm just using it for totally pedestrian purpose, just to burn wood. Even that you're not allowed to do, and that is forbidden for a Jew. The next mitzvah is that it's forbidden for a Jew to have any benefit from the gold and the silver and any of these ornaments, diamonds that they would use, the pagans would use to design their idols, which is something that they would do, that they would take pieces of jewelry, or they would create these platings of gold and silver, and we're not allowed to have any benefit from that. Next mitzvah for today. We are not allowed to. So this is a mitzvah for the Jews when they came into the land of Israel. When the Jews came into the land of Israel after the story of Pesach, which we're about to celebrate, Hashem told the Jewish people that they have to conquer the land of Israel and that they have to create a government, a kingdom of the Jewish people in the land of Israel, and there cannot be any idolatry in the land of Israel. But when the Jews got there to Israel, there were the 7 nations of Canaan, of Canaan, that were present there. And this mitzvah is that we should not allow any of these 7 nations to stay in Israel, and we should not make a peace treaty with them and be in peace with them if they will hold on to their idolatrous ways. We can only let them stay if they pledge to stop being pagan, to stop believing in their gods, and to accept the one God. Otherwise, we cannot make peace with them, and we need to drive them out of the land and conquer the land of Israel. Next mitzvah is that it's forbidden to find grace and to give praise to an idolater and anything has to do with them. Simple as that. Don't find grace. It's forbidden for a Jew to find anything pleasant or good in an idolater. For example, don't even say about an idolater that he's a good-looking person, he has a nice face, etc. Don't show them any type of grace. Okay, the next mitzvah is that we should not allow an idolater to stay in the land of Israel. We can't let him live there. We can't let him buy property. We can't let him rent property. We can't even let him pass through the land of Israel if he's going to hold on to his idolatrous beliefs. And the reason for this mitzvah is like that people in the land of Israel will not become affected and influenced by this person who now is bringing through idolatry. The only way that a non-Jew could live in Israel, and non-Jews could live in Israel, is if this non-Jew pledges to not serve any more idols and believes in the one God, and then we could be at peace with him and we could let him live in the land of Israel. Next mitzvah is another general mitzvah, that is that it's forbidden for a Jew to follow the customs and follow the mores and to follow the culture of non-Jews. Which means simple as that. How do they dress? And where do they gather? And what do they do in their pastimes? And what are simply the customs and traditions and the cultures of the people around you? Don't do it. And the Rambam says, for example, they have just certain little cultures of the land, the way they dress, where they go. They go to the theater. They go to the circus. The Rambam says circus specifically. And they go to certain arenas and where they hear religious talks. But you're not allowed to do anything, even if there's nothing religious about it. Included, the Rambam brings down from the Gemara, from the Talmud, there are certain haircut styles which are culturally non-Jewish, and we are not allowed to have that. The Rambam mentions 3 types of hairstyles which are forbidden for a Jew to have, different types of haircuts. And the same thing for Jews says, you know what, people wear purple, I'm also going to start wearing purple. And men walk out with this type of ornament, which is like a military ornament, and that was just the way people dressed those days. I also want to look like that. A Jew's not allowed to. And the whole idea of this mitzvah is to separate a Jew from the ways of the Gentiles, of the idolaters, and that a Jew should always be distinct and should know he's distinct. And that's by setting the Jew apart. And this is the idea that even the way we dress, we don't have what's called over here malbush nachri, non-Jewish clothing. Okay. Now we have the final mitzvahs for today, which are all about superstitious and paranormal behavior. The next mitzvah is that we are not allowed to be superstitious and to create omens and to start changing our lives based on superstitious omens. For example, if somebody says, you know what, this happened to me today, so it's a bad day for me to do this. Like the Rambam gives a few examples. Somebody says, I just came back from traveling today, so I will not go out today because anything I'm going to do today, I'm not going to be successful at. I don't know, I guess that was a superstition that people believed in back then. Or people will say, the first thing I saw when I left my home today was this, so therefore today's going to be a very successful day. The Rambam says this way of just being superstitious about life is very popular amongst the masses and the foolish people. Don't do that. It's a mitzvah in the Torah, a prohibition. A Jew's not allowed to do that. It's called being a menachesh, being superstitious. And the Rambam gives now a few more examples. Somebody says, the bread I was eating fell out of my mouth, or the walking stick fell out of my hand, or I was walking and a snake passed by my right side, or a fox passed by my left side. And people came up with all these crazy ideas of what these things could mean for you. And people would really drive themselves crazy and just start changing plans in life based on these occurrences that would happen to them. That is forbidden for a Jew to do. Next mitzvah is, this is very, very interesting. A Jew is not allowed to be a psychic, to do psychic practice, to be a practitioner of clairvoyance and psychic stuff. And the Rambam explains, what does it mean? What is the Rambam's position on people who seem to be fortune tellers and they seem to have an ability to predict the future? So the Rambam says that every single human being has certain natural talents, and some people have stronger talents in one area more than others. And there's some people that they're naturally that their natural talent, that they have more than other people, is they have a good sense of intuition. Now, everybody has a sense of intuition. Some people have a low-level sense of intuition. Some people have an average sense. Some people have a very advanced sense of intuition, which means that they will, not because they could predict the future, not because they actually know the future, but they do have a very good feel and intuition for what will happen in the future based on whatever feelings they have. Okay, so people go to these people and ask them, tell me your intuition. And the Rambam says, but the way for these people who have this talent of good intuition, in order to access this deep talent, very often they have to do something. They have to do something concrete to help get them in the zone, to help them focus, and to help them tap into this talent and this sense that they have within them. So they would do different hocus pocus, but the hocus pocus was itself a way to focus their energies and to focus their focus, mentally focus, in order to get in touch with the sense that they had. For example, the Rambam says, and the Rambam says this, that he traveled a lot, and he saw people doing these exact rituals a lot. And the Rambam says especially he saw this in Spain. People would hit the ground with a stick multiple times, and they would scream different things in weird ways, and they would empty out their minds for a very long time until they would enter this trance, non-unconscious state, and they would start speaking what will be in the future. And then gives a few more examples of what people would do. Take a stick and hit a sheet of leather and stare at it. All right, the Rambam says this stuff is very, very famous. People do it all the time. But the Rambam explains that when people do all these weird rituals, it's not that the ritual is telling them what was going to be. Rather, the ritual helps the person focus, but it's the person's own sense and talent of intuition, which is informing them what to say. The Rambam says, but this leads the masses to make a terrible mistake. What's the mistake? When people see that indeed some of their predictions come true, they think that the actions themselves, these weird rituals, these weird hocus pocuses itself, is informing the practitioner of what's going to be in the future. And from there, another mistake developed, which is that people think that by doing the rituals, you could actually change what is going to happen in the future. And the Rambam says that's not true, because we indeed see, even by these talented people who have a good sense of intuition, no two people are going to say the same thing, because they're not working off of facts. They're working off of their own good imagination and their own good sense of intuition. And the Rambam says, granted, these people do have a good sense of intuition, but it's not truth. They're not actually saying the future. In any case, the Rambam is saying that this is called koisem in Hebrew, and a Jew is not allowed to be a practitioner of a koisem to predict the future and to be a fortune teller and to practice clairvoyancy and to be a psychic. The Rambam says the prohibition is only against the practitioner. There's no actual prohibition for a Jew to seek out a psychic, but the Rambam says it's a very disgusting thing. So even though it's not forbidden, it's just it's an abomination. So don't do it. And our final mitzvah for today is a mitzvah against practicing astrology. Astrology is not astronomy. Astronomy is studying the science of the universe. Astrology is coming up with predictions. So the practitioners of astrology would read the stars and read everything else about astrology, the zodiac signs, and they would come up with schedules. This is a bad day to do this. This is a good month to do that. Don't do this on this day. They'd come with a whole spiel, a whole shtick. That is forbidden for a Jew to do. For a Jew to ask, or for a Jew to be a practitioner, and it's also forbidden for a Jew to change his schedule and to choose what he's going to do based on the advice of a stargazer, of an astrologer, telling him do this on this day, don't do this on that day. Included in this mitzvah, final point for today, is that it's forbidden for a Jew to practice sleight of hand that fools the people and the masses. And which is basically magic tricks. What happens with magic tricks? You either have certain trickery, or you are able to move your hands very quickly and fool people, and you're not allowed to do that. Why not? Because it fools people and it makes people believe untrue things. That is the premise of this mitzvah. And then I'm going to give some examples. For example, he's seen that what will magicians do, illusionists do, they'll take a string, put it into the pocket of their garment, and out comes a a snake. Or they'll take a ring, throw it in the ear, and they'll pull that ring out of somebody's mouth who's standing in front of them. And people, wow, how did the ring get from the ear into this person's mouth? And this is all sleight of hand. And the Rambam says it's forbidden because it's a form of witchcraft. Even though it's fake, even though it's only sleight of hand, it's not real magic. But the Rambam says, but you're stealing people's minds. You are misleading people. And that is a form of thievery. You're not allowed to do that. And the Rambam says this causes tremendous damage. Why? Because when you convince people that things that are impossible happen, you are misleading and totally messing with the brains of foolish people and of women and of children who are more vulnerable and more gullible to believe these things. And what you're doing is now you are conditioning their minds to accept that impossibilities can happen, and you're totally disconnecting them from reality. And the Rambam says the damage to that is immense. So here we have a big day, 14 mitzvahs, all about idolatry. Thank you so much for joining, and hope you make it to the end. Take care. Have a wonderful day.